We'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast was produced, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present. This episode contains discussion of suicide. If this raises any issues for you, support is available through the links and phone numbers in the show notes.
It's 2002 and Phil Heath is on a full athletic scholarship, playing basketball at the University of Denver. He's only 5'9", but what he lacks in height, he makes up for in dedication. He holds the record for the highest vertical jump in the school's history with a 40-inch jump from a standstill. But it's dawning on Phil that he doesn't quite have what it takes to make it as a professional athlete in this sport at least. His goal has always been to make it professionally in a sport. It doesn't necessarily have to be this one. He starts experimenting, and after watching a couple of friends compete in a state show, he discovers bodybuilding. Within 6 months, he wins his first amateur competition. Over the next 15 years, he goes on to win the world's most prestigious men's bodybuilding competition, Mr Olympia, 7 times. I'm Matt Middleton, and this is Head Game. Today, what it takes to become one of the world's greatest bodybuilders. Thanks ever so much for joining me, Phil. I'm going to get straight into it because, you know, I just want to dig into that headspace of yours and into your emotions of being and operating at such an elite level for so long, which I know is takes everything out of you and everything from you. But you were before you got into bodybuilding, you were a keen basketball player. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was able to get a Division I scholarship after being a high school state champion. Went to the University of Denver on a full ride scholarship. And there I was able to play all 4 years, or should I say play a little bit, but participated on the team all 4 years. And then shortly thereafter, I was able to get into that sport, as we know, of bodybuilding.
Was it more talent or was it more passion for basketball? You know, were you just a talented athlete or were you just passionate about basketball and you just wanted to work hard at it? Well,
I knew I was talented, but I wasn't tall. So I had to have that grit. And playing with the chip on your shoulder, being, 5'9", 5'10", really drove me to maximize my genetic potential. I had a 40-inch vertical leap. I was very quick, and I was really good on defense, and I could shoot the basketball pretty well. So, I just did the best with what God gave me, and I think that that's something that we all can do. But I definitely took my athleticism to heart. Was always, in that top echelon of all the drills with all my teammates. I was never the guy in the middle of the pack or even further behind. I always just stay competitive, highly competitive, because I knew that being undersized was always going to be something that would be considered as a negative aspect of my game. So in order to up my game, I thought, well, I can always be a little stronger. I could always have a little bit more toughness and not expect to get bailed out by referees by, hey, this is a big guy, he's chopping me down. It's like, well, why don't you just learn how to jump higher and rise above them and get that shot off and play some better defense?
Yeah, you wanted to earn your stripes the right way, right?
Yeah.
Through actually being a fierce competitor. Were you always disciplined at college, or were you sort of like, out and about with the lads, out and about partying every now and then? How was your discipline from a young age when you were playing basketball?
Well, I will say that I was always disciplined growing up. Majority of my friends were also athletes. So we all kept each other in line. And if anything, our biggest thing was basketball, baseball, running track. It could be playing cards. It could be playing video games. We're going to scrap over everything. We're going to talk trash to each other, just give each other a hard time. If we were playing dominoes or even checkers right now, like we would be that same way. So just growing up in that environment, it just breeds a better mentality, whereas you deal with kids nowadays with freaking participation medals and stuff like that. None of that stuff actually looked cool. the only thing that looked cool growing up was being number one. And being number one meant something. And it still does to this day for those that want to be great. And I applaud a lot of my friends, who, I grew up with, for also having that mindset, because I wasn't alone. I had a lot of people that, like I said, a lot of people I grew up with that, had skill, but had grit, had determination, discipline. If I was on the courts shooting hoops, there was plenty of other guys doing the same. So if it wasn't for my parents telling me to get my ass home before the street lights turned on, I would have been out there all night, and that's just what you do.
Yeah, there were no phones, there were no, you need to be back by this time, and you knew by, like you said, the street lights, or when it started to get dark, or when a certain bell rang at school, you're like, right, listen, I need to get home. That's discipline in itself. When did it dawn on you, though, Phil, that basketball wasn't going to be the professional sport that you wanted to get into?
Well, I always wanted to be that guy, but I realized really quick that, man, I'm just not getting the playing time. And if you're not getting the playing time, you're probably not scoring the buckets and contributing at a high level to be looked at as a professional one day. And that was a tough pill to swallow, because as you see your minutes get diminished, man, you just always want to be a part of the team in a way you contribute. And it hurt. It hurt very much, because we also weren't winning. So when you're losing and you're not getting the playing time, you're thinking, well, coach, put me in. I will contribute. I promise. I will fix this. And he had other thoughts. And that coach later got fired, which was great. But at the same time, it did some damage on me mentally, because, you start questioning your own self-worth at that time.
Wow. So you go from being at the top of your game in college to all of a sudden, not making it as an athlete in basketball. And when you talk about the pain psychologically, what is it? Lack of self-belief, deflated. What sort of headspace you go into when you fall from those heights?
You're thinking, am I in delusion? Because I'm in those drills, in practice, I'm being competitive, and I'm just not given my opportunity. And I think that's something that makes you question, am I working hard enough? So I was the person that would go up to the coach or the assistant and, you don't want to ask, but hey, is there anything I can do to get better? And they're like, oh, well, you can do this, you can do this. And then come to find out, even they don't know the answer, because I would do those things and still not get the playing time. And that's when it just felt helpless. And it really hurt me mentally and emotionally, and not having the proper skills to communicate and to raise my hand and to maybe call my parents or call an uncle or talk to a teammate saying, hey, I'm just not in a good spot right now, and I need some help to figure this thing out, whether it be I, change schools or quit altogether. I never really thought it was a skill level thing, because of the fact that I would play in other leagues during the summer months against pros and other college athletes, and I would hold my own. So I knew that I wasn't delusional, but man, it just hurt.
And at this stage, Phil, are your friends making it and you're not, or are you sort of all in the same boat? Because I can imagine, you're around this group that's making you the best version of yourself. They're pushing you physically, psychologically, and I suppose emotionally as well. Are they on this journey with you, or do they sort of make it, which would make, you not making it even more devastating, right? Because, your group's sort of leaving you behind. What happened there?
Well, what happened there was, oh man, I had a couple teammates that were also getting the short end of the stick, and we came together, and every time we all would get put in the game together, we would root for each other. We didn't root necessarily for the team at that point. We were rooting for one another, because we all kind of shared that pain. But then also seeing like some of my buddies from where I grew up or played high school ball with getting paid millions of dollars now, only playing 1 year of college or 2 years of college. You're like, wait a minute, I'm in my 3rd year of college and I'm barely getting playing time. These guys are already driving Bentleys and Rolls Royces. Holy crap, they already bought their mom a new house. What's my problem? And, I learned at a very early age that comparison to others' lives will steal your own joy very, very quickly. And that for sure happened.
So true.
It happened, brother. I mean, it was nasty. But it allowed me to realize that there were also more millionaires at tech companies such as Microsoft than they were in the actual NBA. So then there was a trade-off, right, of how I could, leverage the pain and focus on my degree, because I was having a degree in
I love that.
business.
Leverage the pain. Yeah. Where can I focus and get this, use this pain and I suppose frustration and aggression? Where can I focus that towards? Because if you let it out in the wrong way, you can be on one side or the other. So you use it in the right way. What do you do after when you realize, right, the basketball, I'm a top athlete. I know that I can keep hold of that. However, basketball isn't the sport or the profession that's going to, that I'm going to make a career out of. What do you do next?
Well, I got into a dark place where I was actually looking at committing suicide, and we talk about it quite in depth in Breaking Olympia. I go through it, and I explain it in brutal, honest detail as to what that felt like, and how I also got through it, because it's always important to also address like how you get through things. And to summarize, it's just realizing that there's life to be lived and that this pain can only last so long, and that I can be the light throughout any level of darkness as long as I choose to be that actual light. Sometimes searching for the light is one thing, but you do that, but then you forget that you have light. You have a power source inside, and that's what's supposed to, navigate us through those moments of hell.
And also we have a choice as well, right, Phil? Like you said, that pain and aggression and frustration. So you're in a really, really, really dark headspace. How do you pull yourself out of that?
Well, I realized very quickly that it was imperative that I look around and realize that there's other things in my life that are going well.
Yeah,
I had a scholarship to a great university. I could focus on my education, which is going to, that's part of the reason why you go to college isn't just to play basketball. It was to be a student athlete. The athlete was second. The student was first. So why don't I focus on that and the relationships I can build so that maybe I can learn more scholastically to position myself to get into the workplace at a very high level. And I'm glad I did that, because I met a lot of great people, made a lot of great connections, and understood that what isn't for me leads to something that is. And that happened to be bodybuilding. And I happened to be in a programming class because I was in IT, and the guy sitting next to me was on his laptop screen had a bunch of bodybuilders on it. And I was like, man, that's pretty cool. And next thing you know, I started training with them, started eating with them. And next thing I know, I started going to bodybuilding shows together. And lo and behold, I ended up thinking I could do it. And
wow.
It changed my whole life.
So you've gone from, the highest of heights in college, you got this scholarship, all of a sudden you hit rock bottom because you don't make it in the team. But there's always the one thing I've seen here, Phil, there's always, There's always this will to be the best version of yourself. There's always this competitiveness of, I want to be the best at what I set out to do. There's always this, what's the next challenge? Because, you know, even when you hit your rock bottoms, there's always that in you because it's been bred in you from such a young age, and you've achieved, you know, through college, the highest of heights there. So is that a ongoing factor that you bring into bodybuilding? Right, I'm going to hit bodybuilding now. I really like what it does. I love the training, but I want to be the best at it. Do you go back to that headspace of, if I'm going to hit this, you know, as a top athlete, I want to be the best at it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anything that I do has to have a certain level of intention, and that intention is to be my best. And with bodybuilding, it requires it. It demands it.
Your best or the best?
Well, I had to learn what my best actually was, and something that was foreign to me. I had no clue what bodybuilding really entailed. I had to understand that although I have discipline, is this something I truly like? So once I was able to do my first contest, I didn't just like it. I freaking loved it. And I loved the victory that I received, that I earned.
Did the gym, you know, getting in the gym and focusing that competitiveness and, you know, wanting to be the best version of you and to be the best into the gym, did that help as a form of, you know, to get you out of this hole, to get you out of this dark headspace? Or could you merge all of that together?
I was able to get out of that negative headspace pretty quick after I won my first bodybuilding show. I recognized right away, like, wow, this is my calling, because I knew nothing really about it. And I was so quick to respond with my body, beating guys that were already doing this for 10 plus years on an amateur level. And, you know, I use logic, of course. It's like, hey, if I'm beating guys in the state of Colorado this quick with this little knowledge, oh man, that's synonymous to a guy that was, you know, ahead of the game in basketball or football.
So how quick was it from when you first decided to take it up to when you won your first amateur? Because it was it months or?
No, it was 6 months.
Phenomenal.
It was 6 months.
6 months. Love that. That's so fascinating for me that after you realize, wow, you know, it's taken me 6 months to get to here. Did the big dream of Mr. Olympia hit you then, or did it hit you after?
It hit me much later. Much later.
Much later.
Because I'm a realist. I thought, okay, you just won an amateur show that was more of a local tune-up that would get you ready for the state competition. So I then did the state competition. I won my weight class, but not the overall title. And then I came back that following year, won that overall Mr. Colorado title. And I always thought, well, I should not skip steps, because I know a lot of time, even though you have the ability, doesn't mean you have the theory behind it, you know, and how to really accomplish this goal. And I knew that there was a lot of learning lessons involved. So instead of going from the first grade to the fifth grade, I thought first, second, third, fourth, you know, get everything done. And once I won that Mr. Colorado, I was then ready to go to the next step, which was a junior national show, which although wasn't a pro qualifier, it would then put me in position to maybe get my professional status. So in 2005, I did the NPC Junior Nationals. I won that show hands down, and then a month later, I won my pro card at the Mr. USA competition. So I had a really successful amateur career where I won everything. And it was because I wasn't getting ahead of myself. Because again, a lot of, even some pros that would do guest appearances at local events in Colorado were saying, oh, you should just do the USA, don't do the Junior Nationals. And I'm like, but why would I skip a step? I don't even know what I'm doing. I barely understand how to pose.
Yeah, you're building up wisdom, you're building up experience, you're taking the bite-sized chunks, you're not, biting off more than you can chew. And that is, again, that's a great example on how life is in general. Don't bite off too much, in one go. Go through the right steps, don't cut corners, be disciplined. And that's another great example and another great message to anyone out there is, do it correctly. If you're going to do something, do it properly. Take the right steps and build it up. And you hit your pro card. What was it like to to hit that pro card and go, wow, this is the next stage?
Man, it felt phenomenal.
Yes.
Oh my God. I remember getting that title and I was like, holy smokes. I won my pro card within like 5 shows. I beat guys that have been doing this for so freaking long, and holy crap, like I'm on the cover of Flex magazine the day I won my pro card because I had done a photo shoot after I'd done the junior nationals. And they rushed it because back then, you know, with magazines, it would usually take 2 or 3 months after they did those photos to dictate what's going to be on the cover. But they expedited this one, and I'm so glad they did.
They wanted you out there.
They wanted it right there. And I knew I had arrived at that point in time. I basically felt like, so I'm always trying to draw a parallel to some other sport. So it would be like a person coming out of nowhere, becoming the best rookie, you know, in the NBA, or let's say LeBron James or Kobe Bryant coming out of high school and just hitting the pro ranks like very quick. And once I hit those pro ranks, I wasn't looking back. I won my first 2 pro shows, and man, I was on a tear.
I love what you just said there, Phil. I had arrived. Did you think to yourself, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be? You know, it's that moment of clarity, isn't it? This is where I'm supposed to be. This is my purpose. And those are moments in life that, you know, bypass people. You know, that moment where you just take that second just to breathe it in and go, wow, I've arrived. Because hopefully those moments will keep coming in your life, and it's just about acknowledging those moments and living in the moment. And that's why when you said it, I was like, got goosebumps. I've arrived, because I've had moments like that where I'm like, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And at that stage, you can almost close off all the chapters that you've done and go, right, I'm going to start from here and carry on writing my story.
Yeah, you're exactly right. But in fact, I didn't not necessarily close that chapter. I just acknowledged that chapter or those previous ones existed for a reason.
Yeah.
It's an acknowledgement of, hey,
it makes sense.
It all made sense, exactly. And now I get to write this next one, and let this be a reminder, Phil, that just because you won your pro card, everything resets to 0. Because now you're a pro. Now you have to understand, what does a pro do? What does it truly mean? How do they travel? How do they really train? Who do you need to talk to as a muse to kind of help you? You don't have a coach at this time, so you might want to look into that. All these things, you know, and I just would sit there and try to map this out, because, you know, when there's money on the table with your hobby, you have to really pay attention, because the last thing you want to do is really miss out on some key opportunities. Because in fact, if I'd have done that, I would never have won anything else. I would have been going through a different type of struggle, and I would have sure as hell never won 7 Mr. Olympias.
Your life changes right from that moment onwards. What did that period look like from getting your pro card to competing, not winning, but competing in your first Mr. Olympia?
Oh man, it was recognizing that I'm a huge fan of these other pros, and although I'm a fan, I have to know how to go against them. I got to be able to battle and take the fight to them. And I remember being backstage during my first pro show, and I was just like wanting to take pictures with everybody and hang out, and almost let that I'm just happy to be here type of mentality. And my coach ripped me a new one, and he was like, you are in the fight. You need to cut this stuff out. You can be their friend later. Go handle your business, man, or otherwise you're going to miss out on a great opportunity. And the former the senior editor of Flex magazine at the time was listening in, and he said, you need to listen to your trainer, because he's exactly right. So I'm the type of person that if you give me a set of orders, I'm going to execute it. And I sure as hell did. I let them all have it. I brought hell to their door, and I did not look back. I won that show, came out that following week, won the New York Pro. What was it, 2 years later, won the Ironman Pro, and then did my first Olympia. And once I did that, I won because I won 3 pro shows. I did the Arnold Classic, got 5th at my first one in '07, got 2nd at the Arnold Classic in 2008. Oh, I was already confident enough knowing going in.
You're on fire. Feels like I haven't got no friends. Just I'm focused on my craft. I'm going to be the best at it. And you sound like you're a man possessed, Phil. Were you obsessed with bodybuilding, the way that it made you feel, and the training with it? Was there an obsession there, would you say?
Oh, I would definitely say it, because you recognize your calling and all you have to do is answer it. Every day you have to answer that call to your own greatness. And I wasn't afraid of hard work. I wasn't afraid of the work. I wasn't afraid of anyone I was competing against. I was more concerned with like, hey, how are you going to manage your personal life with this? How are you going to be able to communicate effectively with sponsors to tell them what you truly need so then you could be your most optimal self? And I made sure that anyone that poured money, any type of resource into me, and including love, I used it all. And I just took great pride in knowing that I have to do my best. I will do my best. And I always talk to myself as if I was already in that moment. But I will say, after placing 3rd at that first Olympia, and then that following year getting food poisoning and placing 5th, that was a little hurtful. Yeah, it hurt, because I realized, damn, this could possibly happen. See, you could still do, a different sport with a tummy ache or throwing up, but in bodybuilding, it actually ruins your entire physique. So, that was disappointing. And here's the craziest part. I was sponsored at that time with a supplement company, and I knew, I was like, wait a minute, if I'm 3rd in my first year, that next year I'm probably going to get 2nd or 1st. And now I'm going to go through renegotiation. I'm going to be able to negotiate for a better contract, which is going to help me and my family, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I get 5th. And it didn't matter that I got 5th based on an illness. It just meant you got 5th, Phil. And instead of getting that big contract, I got a little pay increase. And then I realized this is a cold world we live in.
Well, especially bodybuilding, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, there could be one common denominator, because it's how you feel physically, how you feel emotionally, how you feel psychologically. I call it the trilogy. You have to be an all-rounded individual, disciplined in all of those aspects, physically, psychologically, and emotionally, in order to deliver, because there's a disconnect in one of those. And here it was with food poisoning. You can go from 2nd place to 7th place, or 1st place to 3rd place. You have to be, that's what I'm fascinated about the discipline with bodybuilding. You have to be on the ball all the time, don't you?
Oh, that's the name of the game. You have to be on the ball. And it is not be ready yesterday or last week or last month. It is at this given point in time when they are looking at you. You have to be peaked. And the one that is wins. The one that isn't loses. And it's just as simple as that, right? Like, you got to get your timing right.
Brutal. That is brutal.
Yeah. But hey, you're in special forces, man. Like, if you weren't on your game,
absolutely. Someone
dies on your team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bad things happen
100%.
when you are not ready. The mission is not done correctly. That's a whole other level too. So, obviously you get that, and, a lot of people listening, I always ask them, like, where in your life are you missing the mark? Where are you not peaking in life? Sometimes you get away with an 80% effort and still get a win. But are you still staying in that space, sitting on your laurels and being like, oh yeah, I'm just so good at this. I'm kind of gifted at this. I don't have to give much effort. And for me, I'm like, I want to be 100%, and I want to destroy everyone. I want to see what I just want to see. I just want to see what life has to offer. And in order for me to unlock that, I have to be my greatest version of self. And in order for me to do that, I can't leave any stone unturned. I have to turn everything over. I have to cross every T and dot all the I's. And I have to make sure, even on my worst day, that I am my best effort-wise.
Yeah. Consistency. You have to be consistent with yourself, right? And that's what I say to people. People say to me, Ant, what does it take to achieve an elite level? And I say it's not rocket science. You do the basics to a high standard consistently. Take me back to your first win, your first Mr Olympia, where you were stood on there, number one, trophy in hand. And how did that feel?
Oh man, it felt everything was worth it. Everything made sense. It also meant you just got on the craziest roller coaster of your life so far. It's like, you're sitting in a roller coaster and they're like, okay, get ready. And you're going up, 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 up. And that's how it felt. Because, once you get on this roller coaster of success, because that's what it is. When you have a long run, a long career of badassery, it goes fast, right? Just like a roller coaster. And it's up and down, and you're just, just holding on, and
hanging on for dear life.
And you're thinking you got it together. You're thinking you're holding on and got it together. But when they show you the timeline, when the ride is over, and they show the screen, you're like.
It's so true, mate. And it goes, before you know it, it's done, isn't it? It's over.
It's done, man. And it's like every time you challenge yourself to climb that mountain, it's like another trip. And I just never got tired of that trip. I never got tired of doing that. And I realized very, very early on that, you need to enjoy these trips. You need to enjoy these twists and turns and unknowns and stuff, because it's only going to make a better story for later on. And your story is worth, some trials and tribulations. And think about that. Your story is worth trials and tribulations and triumphant moment. And that's what I would tell myself. Like, I need the triumphant moment. I have to have this. I went through too much to give up now. And through my effort, not just declaring it, because we can declare a lot of things and not do anything. But when I declare it and I mean it and I do it and I'm not afraid of anything, it seems to work out. And in bodybuilding, it definitely did. It worked out for me.
So all of a sudden, mate, you've always wanted to thrive. You've always been this athlete. You want to do it in basketball. All of a sudden, you become the Michael Jordan of the bodybuilding world. Top level. You've peaked. You win Mr Olympia. A lot of people would just rest on their laurels and go, right. But then you go and win a second one, a third one, a fourth one, a fifth one, a sixth one, bypassing Michael Jordan's 6 rings, if we're going to compare it to that. And then you win a 7th one. Now, in that period of winning your first one to your 7th one, you talk about a roller coaster ride. To stay grounded in that period of time must have been really hard.
It was extremely hard. It was extremely hard, man. Even your friends, they have moments too where they want to experience that fame. I wouldn't change it, man, because I had a lot of fun. And, I learned a lot. I learned that also some friends will let you literally take everything for granted and watch you steer your boat into another boat, into a bunch of rocks, or run your car off a cliff. And they'll jump out at the end, so they'll save themselves, and they'll watch you fall. And, they'll do that. Family too. Family will, you hear about it a lot of the time with athletes, where family gets involved and they have handouts, and some of them, they have certain levels of entitlement. And I suffered through that with certain people. At all that happens, and you realize, gosh, damn, man, I just want to compete, and I just want to have fun, and I just want my loved ones to experience it with me without them dragging me down. And that's not always going to happen. So, a lot of the time, it just requires you to go back into your little cave and, really start doing some hard assessments as to who really rides for you, what friends really care for you, who really checks on you. Asking you really honestly, like, hey, do you need anything? I'm here to, hey, you want to just go for a walk?
Yeah. Where's your head at? Are you okay? Do you just want to chat shit and just, a bit of escapism, right?
Yeah, and even things they don't know. I mean, not everybody, like I wouldn't understand what it took for you to do like in military career and stuff like that, but I can still say like, hey, if there's anything you need that you feel I can help with, please don't hesitate. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know exactly what you're going through, but I can tell you that I've been through something, and it does require just an ear to lend to a friend. And there's times where I felt like I needed that without having to ask for it. And it wasn't always there, and it did hurt, but it also taught me to raise my hand and get out of my ego and say, hey, Aunt, I need you, bro. Where are you at right now? I just need to talk to you for 5 minutes. It really helped me out.
Yeah, and I suppose that's super important as well, and it's recognizing that. But also, when you say just lending an ear, it's lending an ear and having that common denominator. When you surround yourself with people, there's always a common denominator there. With us, it would be pushing yourself to the extreme, discipline, being lonely at the top, being isolated, isolating yourself. Or, there's so many common denominators that you can pick on. I think that's really, really important with any conversation. But going back to your cave, you mentioned, going back into your cave. What does Phil Heath's cave look like?
It usually starts with me going on a nice long drive and finding an area that I can just breathe. I can get out of the car or even be in the car and just not have any distractions. Turn the music off and just breathe and just try to just be still for a minute. And when I lived in Colorado, I was able to drive to the mountains and just get outside and kind of just be around nature and ground myself for a little bit, and then get back in the car and drive and get back home or get to the gym. But I really, the common denominator was to make sure I be still and just harness some energy and breathe, instead of just totally reacting and, I'm going to go mask this pain by going to the gym. It's like, wait a minute. Assess, are you okay? The answer is no. Okay, why? And on what level? What can you do to kind of help get through it just for right now? Why I can talk to a friend, can't do that. Okay, what can you do? I can go to the gym. I can read. I can maybe play a video game or something for a second. But then at some point, I'm going to have to revisit this. And I didn't learn until later on in my life that I had to revisit it in its entirety. And I felt like, that a lot of athletes tend to mask that pain. And I'm learning that
absolutely.
And then I realized most men do that. We live in a world where we're not expressing ourselves completely and authentically because we're not looked at as creatures that require that space. We have so much pressure on ourselves to be a provider, and those who want to be a protector of their family, suffer in silence. And making sure that I at that moment recognized the pitfalls that will occur if I don't change these habits. And luckily I found a great partner in that, with my wife. She was able to really acknowledge my ego and my inability to communicate, because she's an awesome communicator. and she has a ton of patience and grace. And I wasn't exhibiting any of that, not only to her, but to myself. So once I was able to do that, then that's what made, the competing and everything else be more worthwhile. And especially stepping away from the sport for a while, that has been the most important thing that I can now deliver to other people when I go meet them at events or just on the street or through these platforms, is to remind especially men, whether it be young, but particularly high-performing males in like that 30 and over space, that you can actually have what I would call a hollow victory or a series of them by not fully being present with your wins. Not recognizing the fact that, hey man, it's okay to celebrate for 5 minutes. And I get it, you want to focus on the next one, but it's okay to celebrate, and celebrate hard. Celebrate hard for a minute and remind yourself that, man, I deserve this win. I earned this win. And I'm going to enjoy this win. I'm going to enjoy it. And then I'm going to enjoy it for myself, and I'm going to enjoy it with my family. And then when it's time to get back to work, it is time. But I got to really enjoy. It can't just be work, 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 work. It just can't. You got to celebrate just for a little bit.
Yeah, it's almost a vent, isn't it? It's almost like it's a way, it's a release of just enjoying yourself, knowing that, you can almost, put work aside, put everything aside, have a blowout or have a vent in that way, whatever it is that you do, and then that clears your head to get back into work, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And if you don't, you get even more fatigued. So for me, it was always trying to figure out ways to, allow myself that happy place. I remember I ended up
finding that happy place, Phil's happy cave.
It could be in the gym. It could be for me, it could be me going to the gun range. It could be me, driving my 1970 Chevy Chevelle, just driving fast or something on a track. It could be a lot of those things. It could be, hanging out with my wife and going somewhere for a walk or going to a nice dinner. But overall, you have to figure out your own thing that's going to recharge those batteries for the next battle ahead.
Yeah. The day in the life of Phil Heath when you're at your best. You've won, multiple Mr Olympias. What does a day in the life of you look like when you're fully in training mode? How many hours in the gym? What are you eating? Just do not disturb me. What does that look like?
It looks like hell, but it's a lot of fun. I'm getting up super early in the morning. I'm getting up around 5 in the morning. I'm doing the cardio, 40, 45 minutes. I'm hopping in either the infrared sauna or the hyperbaric. But I would do the hyperbaric, and then I would, then do the infrared sauna to pull those toxins out. And then have, in between, I would do like a shake and stuff like that. And then I would eat thereafter every 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours?
Every 2.5 hours I'm eating. And I'm eating a lot. I'm eating, for proteins, you can have either, fish, steak, chicken. I hate turkey. I'm not going to eat that. But we're talking about like in grams, we're doing 300 grams weight of protein 6-7 times a day. And some meals are with carbs, some are not. But it's like that throughout the prep, and depending on how I look, not just how I feel, but how I look, we'll make some adjustments. But 3 to 4 days a week, I would be doing a traction table, a DRX 9000, where you're traction for my neck and my lower back, because you get a lot of compression when you're weighing 275, 280 at 5'9", holding a bunch of weight on your back, doing heavy squats and stuff. So I made sure that I did that early on in my career so I wouldn't have many back problems. And then I was also getting neuromuscular massages twice, if not 3 times a week. But the typical day was a lot of food. I would say in pounds, it was like 5 to 6 pounds of protein a day. You know, the food bill was just ridiculous.
6 pounds.
Dude, it's just crazy.
I bet it was, mate. There goes all your sponsorship money.
And you learn right away, I need to get more sponsors. You know, I need to make some more money. I need to eat and then, you know, pay all these bills and stuff, man. So, yeah, you know, but I tell you what, I learned so much about my body, but more importantly about, you know, the inner workings of what makes this guy tick, you know, this machine work. And again, I give a lot of credit to my wife too. Cherie's just been an integral part of my success and how she's been super supportive. I mean, this is a woman that, you know, had a great career away from me before we got together. And she left her career to help me. So there would be times where I would be like, you know, very fatigued and whatnot. But I'd say to myself, how am I going to, you know, show that type of fatigue when she just gave up everything to be with me? I wouldn't have done that for anyone. So for her giving me her gift, I should receive it and use it to the best to honor her. So, you know, we make a great team, and now we get to do it in business. And, you know, and she's a huge part of Breaking Olympia, you know, because she was going through her own struggle. She had autoimmune issues. She had black mold on her implants. So she had breast implant illness, and it almost took her life, and she had to get a full explant surgery. And this was during 2019, right before the pandemic. And, you know, my wife was not okay. And to see her go through that was really tough, because most men want to be able to sort it out. And when you can't sort it out for your wife, someone you love, it becomes very painful. You know, she's healthy now, and I'm just so thankful that, you know, we were able to watch the premiere last night together. And
big moment, mate. Breaking Olympia. That is a big moment to watch that. What was it like watching that with your loved ones and knowing that that's going to hit the world and be out, you know, well, very, very, very soon?
Yeah, it was just incredible. You know, I mean, we had a lot of the people that were in it last night. You know, we had Jay Cutler there. We had my trainer, Hani Rambot, there. You know, we had a lot of people that showed up at some point in time in that film. And, yeah, it was a great freaking moment where, you know, my wife and I are just sitting there holding hands saying like, yes, we did it. This was all worth it, man. And to be on the other side of these things and to be partners in life and lovers in life is just, you know, a dream come true. And now we get to share our story.
Yeah, mate. But listen, if anyone's earned it, you have 7 times Mr Olympia. Talk about consistency. Talk about, you know, the elite, which is doing, you know, the basics to a high standard consistently. Wow, mate. Absolutely phenomenal to speak with you. Absolute phenomenal story. Breaking Olympia. Now, get out there and watch that, because, you know, if you're in a bad headspace, if you're struggling with discipline and you're struggling with structure in your life and, you know, surrounding yourself with the right people and succeeding, then Mr. Phil Heath, you are the epitome of all of that. Now, a final question before I love you and leave you, mate. What does Phil Heath's max bench press look like?
Well, the max I'd done was 505 in my career. That was the max, man.
Yeah, I'm not going to get anywhere near that, mate. So listen, I'll scrap that one straight away. Listen, Phil, thank you ever so much for coming on, mate. And from here in Australia, mate. Shame that I'm not in the UK, because we would have hooked up and grabbed some good food.
Oh yeah.
Listen, maybe we'll save that for another time. But mate, thank you ever so much. Breaking Olympia. Get out there, watch it. Phil, you're an absolute gentleman, and thank you ever so much for coming on my podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, and all the best to you. You're killing it, brother.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks so much for joining me on Headgame. Breaking Olympia. The Phil Heath Story is available now on digital platforms. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of our incredible stories, and leave me a review wherever you're listening. I'm Ant Middleton. Catch you again next time.